One talking now. All right? Can you respect that?
I deliberately put this slide up for people to look at while we're getting settled down, because this is what a lot of Natal grassland should look like. And there's very little that does still look like that. Really species rich in terms of form diversity, a lot of endemics, a lot of very palatable grass species. But unfortunately, there's very little, as I say, left like this. Most of our grasslands are full depauperate with unpalatable grasses. So Bot.Soc was very keen to get involved with stewardship, with the stewardship program as an NGO partner, particularly to secure what we thought were botanically important sites in KZN. And we successfully applied for funding through the CEPF Critical Ecosystems Partnership Fund. So we are now busy implementing biodiversity stewardship in several sites throughout KZN. Just a quick, why is it so important to conserve botanically important sites? These are just some figures out of the latest Red List assessment for South Africa. Just the area of KZN, 33% of the habitat's been lost. There are over 5,000 indigenous plant taxa, 391 endemics, 7.5% of the plants in the province are endemic. There are 470 plant species or taxa of conservation concern, almost half of which are endemics. And the threatened taxa, half of them are endemics. So it's really critical, because a lot of these endemics only occur in Natal, to preserve them or conserve them, because they don't occur even outside of the province. What is Bot.Soc doing about this? As I said, we are currently implementing Biodiversity Steward at 8, and it keeps growing, botanically important sites in KZN with the funding. We also provide ongoing ecological and botanical information and surveys, felt condition assessments, biodiversity index assessments, and we participate in site assessments with the KZN Biodiversity Stewardship Program, and we have been doing this since 2007. Pre-CEPF funding, but it's very nice to have it now. And Bot.Soc also involves civil society in conservation through CREW, the custodians of rare and endangered wild plants. And I don't know if many of you heard Savannah's talk yesterday, but she detailed how CREW is involved with conservation. And then going back to Bill's talk, we are very involved with botanical mentoring of the Mgano field rangers, which has been a really rewarding project. And as you saw, we're collecting herbarium specimens, building up the species inventory for the Mgano project. Just to show you where the sites are in the Mafutaland-Pondoland hotspot, there's our one Itala site. The rest of them are pretty much clustered around the Midlands and down on the south coast. Just to document, there's Fromel up in the north. These are the sites further down with the hectareage, which together, if it all gets proclaimed, will be over 12,000 hectares, which isn't huge, but it adds to the grand total. These were the 8 sites we initially put out for funding. But 1 or 2 of them are looking possibly slightly dodgy, because for reasons I'll go into later. So we've now taken on board and are co-facilitating another 2 sites. How did we select the sites? Obviously, it's largely based on the presence of threatened species. For example, at Klomo, there's a critically endangered cycad population, the only one known. Edgeware, there's a critically endangered asclepiad or milkweed. We also select them on threatened vegetation types. We focus on the sandstone coastal sourveld, which is critically endangered, on the Midlands mistbelt grassland, which was critically endangered until very recently, when somehow KZN Wildlife managed to find an extra 4,000 hectares. So it's now endangered, which is fantastic. And obviously on endemic plant species, these are really important. And we also had a lot of input from the KZN Biodiversity Stewardship Program in site selection, thanks particularly to Kevin, who was involved with this when we put in the proposal. And yeah, in my other life, I'm a pollination biologist. So and to go back to what Ian Little was saying yesterday, we really know very little about invertebrate endemism and where they are and how to conserve them. And I just feel very strongly that by conserving intact, pristine vegetation and endemic plant species, that will carry along with it many of the endemic invertebrates and pollinators, which are critical for the survival of the ecosystems. Just to detail a couple of the sites, the Fromel Game Proposed Nature Reserve is over 1,000 hectares. It's up in the Atala area. As I said, it's got this fantastic population of Encephalitis emulans, which is, we haven't done an absolutely exact count yet, but we estimate there are over 500 individuals. They're actively producing cones and there are seedlings. So it's really a fantastic population. It's the only one known. I think there are 2 male plants on a hill nearby, but they're obviously, that's not a viable population. There have been quite serious poaching problems. I think, as you all know, cycads, and particularly the rare cycads, are eminently collectible and command an enormous price. So it really is quite important to give formal protection to this area and to give the landowners assistance with protection of the colony. We've also, and I'm going up next week to do a botanical survey, we suspect there are a lot of KZN high altitude endemics there. It's over 1,000 meters at the top of the mountain. It's got a huge altitudinal gradient, which is really important for climate change. So it's quite a critical site. We met with the landowners in June, following on Bridget Church's negotiations a couple of years ago. We carried out the site assessment in August, and the next step is to present the site to the stewardship review panel early next year, hopefully. Another interesting site is Normalanga, which is near Greytown in the Midlands. It's got large areas. It's over 2,500 hectares with a mixture of valley bushveld and mistbelt grassland. It's got populations of the endangered Gerbera aurantiaca. There's the very proud landowner, Irvin Pascal, taking pictures of the Hilton Daisy population a couple of weeks ago. It's also got a couple of other endangered, or several other endangered mistbelt endemics, Alonil crouchii, large populations of Scilla natalensis, which is used extensive medicinally. Also, by the by, which doesn't really count botanically, it's got the second largest Orobi population in the province. And it's got a breeding pair of wattled cranes and blue cranes, which we also saw a couple of weeks ago out walking together, which was quite fun. The 2 species. The progress we're at here is we're just busy finalizing the management plan, and the proclamation documents will then be submitted for approval through KZN Wildlife and the MEC, and then it can be proclaimed. Mgwano, which Bill has told you about in great detail, I'm only focusing on the nature reserve area, which is 1,500 hectares up in the high altitude. As Hilton Adi was saying yesterday, it's got the best quality primary mistbelt podocarp forests in the province. So those on their own are well worth conserving. It's got a fantastic population of Encephalitis galenkii, also actively reproducing. It's got large areas of Protea savanna, 3 different species. It's got a number of important plant species, and we're finding more and more the more often we go up there. A lot of endemic species. And obviously very good condition Drakensberg moist foothill grassland, which we are going to be really stringent about the grazing of. just to answer the questions. We will set very low grazing and, in fact, preferably only use it in times of drought and dire need. The progress with this site is we are trying to resolve land ownership issues. It's in the unfortunate position of still being under the now defunct Transkei government, and so it's got to be transferred to the KZN authorities. Nan Deepa, who's the stewardship facilitator who's working with me on this, has done fantastic work and made progress in that. And we are busy updating the management plan to include the nature reserve and various other aspects. And then lastly, the Red Desert Nature Reserve, which is the southernmost reserve, which I took over when it was quite well down the track, but it had got very stalled with the Hibiscus Coast municipality. It's got fantastic biodiversity value. It's critically endangered and very poorly protected sandstone coastal sourveld. It's situated right in the middle of the Ponderland centre of endemism, and it's got masses of endemic plant species, including the largest known population of Phylica natalensis. And it's also one of the last remaining corridors of natural grassland down from the Umtumvuna Game Reserve to the sea on the Natal south coast. We've had a few hiccups, but we finally got the management agreement signed, and the proclamation documents are in the process of being approved by KZN Wildlife Committees. Just briefly to highlight on how crew gets involved with stewardship. We've got several crew groups, and what I've done is focus them on the stewardship sites. So in Ponderland, they've done a lot of botanical surveys at Red Desert and Fairview. In Kampatini at Wingfield, which is another fantastic, I've only highlighted a few reserves. Mvoti at the Normalanga site. Boston at our two Boston sites. Underberg at Mgano in the shelter. Bot.Soc inland branch in Mgano, and the crew A-team in Hyover, which is a new site that we're visiting next month. Another important function of crew is that they bring to our attention really fantastic sites. Dave Clulo at Boston kept saying, please come and look at Edgware Mountain, please come and look at Edgware Mountain, and I finally got there in December 2010, and lo and behold found a fantastic population of this critically endangered milkweed, the third one in the Midlands, and also this very data deficient Shiza glossum, and it's mist-belt grassland. So we got quite interested, and the landowners were keen in having it proclaimed as a nature reserve. So Gareth Boothway from Midlands Conservation Forum and myself got together, and we went to see the landowners and Gareth gave them a presentation, and they're very keen to come on board. So we're going to carry out the site assessment there in January and move forward from that. But it's really significant in that it was actually brought to our attention by crew volunteers. Just a couple of words about some of the problems and issues that we've encountered along the way. Firstly, it's quite walking on eggs working with landowners, because they can change their mind at any point during the process. If you don't pay a lot of attention to them, they begin to feel quite neglected and they're not happy. And when you're juggling 8 or 9 sites, you don't get to all of them every week. There are often delays in progress, in projected progress through land ownership issues, signing of documents, all sorts of things do hold us up. And then the other thing that's really bothering us is that we are busy implementing and getting these sites proclaimed, but they need to be serviced and monitored on an ongoing basis, and there are capacity questions. Okay, so thanks to the KZN Stewardship Unit. They've been absolutely fantastic. Greg and his team have been unbelievably helpful to me, and crew for assistance with surveys, the university for use of their facilities, Rob Scott Shaw and Bridget and Clinton for plant help, and to the CEPF for the funding. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you very much. We still have time. I think we've got about 5 minutes for question. Any question to Isabel? 1, 2, 3.
Of course, the biodiversity value in conserving these sites is evident, but what's your selling point to the landowners? How do you convince them that they need to